Hello, everybody. It's Monday, and boy, we had one heck of a weekend there, my friend. Matt, your Bulldogs pulled through, which is great.
Yeah,
Um, Go ahead.
yeah. It's just in terms of a fan's perspective, boy, that was a long game.
I
So
would imagine, yeah,
great game.
it was a good game. It was a very good game, and honestly, to be you had two teams that clearly wanted to win, and it couldn't have been a more entertaining game.
Yeah, yeah. They use the terminology signing up for a full 60. Man, it with the exception of Ole Miss last year, I feel like these last 2 years have really embodied like Kirby Smart preaches it, but they've really embodied like the dogs will show up for the full 60 every time. Because you look back to that Alabama game last year, kind of a similar circumstance. They obviously didn't get the result that they wanted, but they signed up for the full 60 and then some in Knoxville on Saturday, and Tennessee didn't. Quite frankly,
Well, I think talent wise, it wore out.
yeah,
Um, there's no question that that the better team won the game. That
yeah.
doesn't always happen in situations like that. But
I
you
did
know, go
I
ahead.
did find it interesting though that like Georgia rotates a lot of defensive linemen in and
Hmm.
out just to try and keep them fresh, so that in the fourth quarter when your offensive line, they're tired, but they don't really have as much of an edge as maybe they would against other teams that don't have the same depth as Georgia and aren't able to
Hmm.
rotate their D linemen the same way. But on that last drive for Tennessee in the fourth quarter, the Tennessee offensive line still leaned on them, and they produced the
Hmm.
results they needed all the way up until that false start, which was ultimately very costly for them.
Hmm. No question. And you know, the game that I had was watching, which we talked about Friday, South Florida and Miami. Um, I didn't think South Florida would win.
Yeah,
But I also didn't think they would get, manhandled. And I think a lot of it um, was, again, Miami just had the superior talent and the depth. And um, I think that if you look at that situation, if Miami doesn't do something stupid between now and the end of the season, there's no question they're not going to just be in the playoffs. They're going to be a team that could very well win a national championship. And an old Georgia boy, Carson Beck, in at least the two games I've seen, the Notre Dame game and South Florida game, he's uh, he's putting it out there. I mean, he's playing tremendous. And when you've got an offensive and a defensive line that average 6'4", 300, I'm pretty sure there's going to be tough to get to the man.
yeah. I was just you were talking about Miami going down the road. There's on 10-4, Miami goes to Florida State. I was
Hmm.
curious. I was looking to see who was at home during that game because home field will definitely matter in that football game.
Hmm.
That's going to be that I believe it's going to be honestly Miami's biggest test. I know Clemson's not on the schedule this year.
Right.
Um, and in terms of what they have post Florida State, there's not a lot in terms of there's no ranked teams past Florida State. In fact, Florida State's the only ranked team on Miami's schedule, so they're primed for it. And there's been a lot of people talking about Carson Beck and
Hmm.
the impact that he had not only at Georgia but now moving forward, kind of questioning what he did, especially in that last year
Hmm.
and his talent. But I think people just kind of like they looked at Georgia's results and said, well, this isn't the same Georgia. This isn't the same Carson Beck we saw in 2023.
Hmm.
2023 was a much different team than 2024 for Georgia in terms of the
Hmm.
offensive talent, the offensive line, the weapons. There's no more Brock Bowers and Lad McConkey in 2024 for them. They were top 10 in the nation in drops. They were almost dead last in rush yards in the SEC in 2024. So they won 10 games in part because of Carson Beck, not in spite of him,
Hmm.
talent that they had around him. And so when this came over there, it's like, well, it's just Carson Beck. Like, what's Miami going to do? Well, no, he's still the same guy that he was in 2023 and was in 2024. It's just now he has pieces around him that make him look like the same guy that he always has been.
Yeah, the point you make there is very important, and that is Mario Cristobal surrounded him with elite talent. I mean, he's got wide receivers that we know are going to play in the NFL, the next level. They've got running backs. They've got, they built a team around what makes Carson Beck good.
Yep.
And I think just like what happened last year, with Cam Ward, is Miami realized, okay, what do we do? We got this solid quarterback. What do we have to do to make them look, to make them work?
Yeah.
And they did it for Cam Ward last year, and they're doing it so far for Carson Beck.
Yeah, and the offense, Shane Dawson's offense, I think fits Carson Beck a lot better than Mike Bobo's does. Just the way, I mean, you could see it on Saturday. They like to do different stuff with the quarterback. Where Carson Beck, he likes to be in control. He talked about it after the Notre Dame game and how much more he's allowed to do at the line of scrimmage this year compared to the previous two. And so it's interesting to see the contrast, because I think it's a trade. I say trade, but it's a situation where both teams came out better. Like Carson Beck's better, Miami's better, and I think Georgia's better. The way things worked out, and it sounds very odd to say, with some of the seemingly animosity that came from people in the offseason.
Well, it's just a shame because I don't know what more he could have done at Georgia than what he did. There's no reason to be upset with him, and I do think that Mario Cristobal and the offensive team down there at Miami, they did the same thing for Cam Ward. They told him, look, we're going to call the play. If you walk up to the line of scrimmage and you don't like it, change it. Now that really gives quarterbacks a tremendous, especially guys like Carson Beck, Cam Ward, guys like that, who are smart people. That really gives them, a sense of, hey, look, they feel comfortable enough for me to make decisions.
Yeah.
And, that's got to, spur your confidence.
Yeah, it definitely does. And I do feel, I don't know if bad is the term for USF, but it seemed like everybody just kind of came in and you had what felt like the entire public on USF plus 17.5. They're talking about how big of a number it was and everything like that. And USF's still a really talented football team. But when you're not as talented as they are, they still aren't as talented as Miami. And when you are a significantly less talented team, and that the team across from you has their full focus on you, like Miami wasn't looking ahead to Florida this week, and in a similar way that I think Florida was kind of looking ahead, and they showed you on Saturday, Florida's still not a really good offensive football team, and that wouldn't have changed. But I do think they did fall victim to that. And so when you upset a team the week prior and then you're going back on the road to play another ranked team, it felt like an impossible spot for South Florida.
Well, and Alex Golesh addressed it after the game. He said, look, those guys on the other side of the field, he goes, they're just better than we are today. And he said, if we're lucky, and if we stay healthy, he goes, who knows? We may end up playing them again sometime down the road. Yeah. Basically saying, maybe they'll catch them in the playoffs. Yeah. I still think that South Florida, when you go into the American, they'll have some tough battles there with Tulane and Memphis and the likes of them. But I think what they learned, and you can learn from losing, that, okay, Miami is one of the top 4 teams in the country. And there's a difference between number 4 and number 18.
Yep. Yeah. And you touched on Tulane there in the American. They had a pretty good game against Duke on
Yeah.
Saturday as well. And Jake Retzloff, I think he probably would have wanted to have a better day through the air, but man, he made up for it on the ground. I think last I checked, he ran for 4 touchdowns.
Yeah.
So it was, they're doing their job as well, and that Tulane team's been very good for the past couple of years. They haven't been, they weren't good enough last year to get the G5 spot over Boise, but they've done a really good job down there.
They have, and they play Ole Miss this week.
That's gonna be, especially depending on how Austin Simmons is health wise. And granted, you couldn't really feel that loss on Saturday for Ole Miss, but it'll be a little more important come this weekend for Ole Miss to have Austin Simmons back. I think because I think Tulane's a much better defensive team than Arkansas is.
Yeah, and it should be fun to see how they end up on that. Let's take a quick look at the AP top 25. This is 20 of the 25 coming up here. Ohio State number 1, Penn State number 2, LSU. I'd flip LSU in Miami. LSU showed me nothing on Saturday night.
Well,
I mean, they should have. They had scoring opportunities all over the field, and they couldn't do it.
Well, they showed you what you already knew about LSU, and that was that their defense is really good this year.
Yeah,
but they didn't inspire anything in terms of offensively. They looked kind of same old as they have the first 2 weeks in the season. But what I will say is that I'm going to take a stance that I'm not sure many people may be on my side on here, but I'm kind of with Brian Kelly in the way he responded in that post-game press conference. And as people look at it and go, like, you got to have some decorum about you or something like that. But man, they came off a big win at night, and the football team's 3-0. And your first question is like, well, how can we poke holes in what just happened?
Well, that's not fair.
No,
I mean, from a journalistic standpoint, they beat Florida. What do you want them to do? Okay, my rationale is not that LSU's bad; it's that Miami's better.
Yeah.
So that's just subjective on my part. But you can't. I mean, what do you want? LSU won the game. What I just don't know what else to say. I mean, you win the game you're supposed to win. Fine, okay. No, I agree with you about Brian Kelly. Brian Kelly has nothing to stand there and apologize for.
Yeah. Jim, I will say my computer's about to die and I don't have the best setup, so I'm gonna have to change something really quick.
Okay.
I'll be back in a second.
I'll go through the final bits of the top 10 here real quick, and by the time you come back, we'll be ready to go.
Sounds good.
Cool. All right. Well, after Miami, we have Georgia, Oregon, Florida State, Texas, Illinois, Texas A&M, Oklahoma, Iowa State, Ole Miss, Alabama, Tennessee, Utah, Texas Tech, Georgia Tech, and Indiana. Those are your top 20 teams. And let's take a look at some of the questions that we're getting from our buddies on X. Let's see. So then let's take a look at some of the questions. One of the questions, Anna said that is there anything that you can take away from this is, I'll save it for Matt when he is back. about Miami and Georgia. And let's see. I'm going to go with symbolic. And the war chants is echoing across Knoxville. And Michigan, Notre Dame are up there. He's back. There he is. All right. Well, while you were gone, I went to X because we're getting questions from X.
Okay.
And a couple of fun ones. The first one was, is either Purdue or Northwestern going to receive the participation trophy this year in the Big Ten? I'm sorry, in UCLA. I've got to go with UCLA. I think they're going to get the participation trophy because God knows that's a train wreck out in out in Westwood. My God.
Yeah. I mean, you take what happened on Saturday, or wait, no, it was Friday night where they lost.
Friday night, yeah.
Yeah.
I actually stayed up and watched that game for a while.
You take what happened on Friday night compared to what Knoxville, Tennessee looked on Saturday. And man, it's been well documented, but boy, did Nico make just a great decision for himself.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know who was in his ear. I don't know if it was his dad. I don't know if he had an agent. I don't know what it was, but he got some bad advice along the way. And he's paying for it dearly right now. It feels, and I struggle because I'm not sure if it's a fair comparison, but it feels like a pretty fair comparison. Tate Martell a couple of years ago, when he was at Ohio State and he was talking, he talked about how he was going to beat Justin Fields out for the job, and he didn't do that. And then Justin Fields left, and he still didn't win the job. And he transferred to Miami. That didn't work out there. They tried moving him to receiver and all this stuff. And so there are cases where there are these like super talented kids that need they need structure and stability throughout their career. And they get fed some bad advice along the way, or maybe they think a little bit better than they are in their current state. And you see things go downhill because it can be that easy for things to go sideways because you only get 4 or 5 years in college, and then it's time to be a pro. And if you haven't put up with if you haven't produced in your 4 or 5 years, then you're not going to be a pro. And that's the barrel that Nico's staring down right now.
This is one where I'm almost tempted to just say, you got to be kidding me. Okay, Yogi Buck, I'm guessing, is a Florida State fan because he says to me in his X post that the war chant is the most iconic, symbolic, and well-known song in the history of college football in all of North America. Prove me wrong. I'll be more than pleased to do so, Yogi. Notre Dame, I'll take that fight song. It's only been up there for 100 years, okay? Florida State's war chant may be 30 years old, and it's not that iconic. It's somebody putting their arm up and going, chanting and going, with the tomahawk chop. That's not iconic. Oh, hail to the victors, University of Michigan. I'm sure, Matt, you can name a few. We just talked about it, Rocky Top. I mean, seriously, if you think that the war chant is iconic, you either don't know a damn thing about college football, or you're so drinking the Kool-Aid at Florida State, I can't help you.
It's a good song. Like it creates a good atmosphere at Florida State, and I'll give the credit, but it's also not exclusive to them. Like it's not just Florida State's thing. There's countless other teams. Kansas City does a version
Well,
of
a
it.
lot of them stole it from them. Okay, I'll
Yeah,
go that bit, but still, come on,
it's
iconic.
yeah,
Really?
it's a hard.
You got high school teams playing the fight song from Notre Dame.
Yep.
I mean, really. Okay.
Michigan was the place that I went to when I thought of like the iconic fight song, just because
Yeah.
it's
Hail to the victors.
it's kind of the one that rings in my head, I guess, most often.
There's I forget what USC's fight song is, but it's been up there for many years. You know, it's I don't even think that the war chant is more of a song as it is just a humming and chanting and making a tomahawk chop situation.
Yeah, that is true.
So it's not even a song.
A little aside on the fight song thing,
Right.
you'll notice if anybody's ever listened to Auburn's fight song,
War Eagle, right?
you overlay that with Georgia's fight song, and it's almost dead similar. Like, they are like almost identical. It throws me off every time Georgia plays in Jordan Hare because I don't know if it's our band or their band playing.
Right, trying to figure out who it is. Yeah, it's I don't know. I mean, hell, Georgia Tech, the Ramblin' Wrecks from Georgia Tech. That's an older but a definite iconic song. But no, come on, guys, iconic maybe in the last 10 years, but not not in the history of college football. I mean, that's just come on. You can do better than that, Yogi. Come on. All right, what do we got here? Okay, let's go. Oh, here's one for you, my friend. If Georgia were to play against Miami today, who would win?
Today,
Well,
I'd probably
I'm assuming on Saturday, but yeah.
Honestly, today I would probably take Miami. They've looked like a more complete team in tests. That's Georgia's first test. And in terms of a body of work, I've got a 3-point victory they eke out on the road, and I've got a lackluster performance against Austin Peay. Those are the two results that stick out to me from Georgia. In terms of Miami, they beat what is still, I believe, a really good Notre Dame team.
Yep.
They may not be in the playoff because they don't have anything left on their schedule, but who I believe is still a really good Notre Dame team. And then they dismantled USF, which is a really good football team as well. Both of those were at home. I know that. I know it's more difficult going on the road, but I would probably go with Miami right now.
For right now, I think it's fair. I mean, we know they'll get better. Let's go through this. This is, I wanted to throw these at you and see what you saw. Here's what I'm going for: underrated teams that are just not, being given the just due. Let's go with Vanderbilt, number 20 and 23, by the way, in the coaches poll.
Yeah.
I don't know what more they have to do. They won 3 games, the first 3 games they played.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
They won them in the very first game, against a non-P4 opponent. It was what it was. That's kind of the result you want, especially with the expectations that Vanderbilt kind of had this year, because they have a lot higher expectations than they have in the past coming into this season with what they had returning. But then, they go up to Virginia Tech, and it's a game for a half, and then it wasn't a game in the second half. And then they go to Columbia, and I know that Lenore Sellers got knocked out of the football game relatively early in that game. But still, when he was in the football game, they scored once. And aside from that, their offense didn't look fantastic. And they had them ranked 11th in the country. So they've gone and they've handled their business, and they've faced every test, and they've passed with flying colors to this point. I don't know what more they have to do to get a higher ranking, but I guess we'll see.
Okay, how about USC 3-0? They're ranked 25th in AP. They're not ranked by the coaches poll. They got that win 33-17 over Purdue, which we talked about last on Friday, talking about that. And yeah, they beat Missouri State and Georgia State, but I think the Trojans, frankly, are going to end up in the thick of things there in the Big Ten as the season goes by. That's a good offensive.
Yeah, I'm not as sold on USC. Quite frankly, I wouldn't have them ranked. I didn't really buy into what they had coming in this offseason. I know they've got a good recruiting class for this year, but right now I'm not really a big believer in USC. And part of it's I'm not a huge believer in Lincoln Riley.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't trust him to go out and win, you know, the big games that he's going to need to win in order for USC to be in the thick of it. And they won 33-17, but Purdue's not a very good football team either. I think people need to remember that as well.
How about TCU at 2-0? They're not ranked at all.
See, now TCU is a team that I like, and it starts with the quarterback position for TCU. Josh Hoover is really good. Yeah, he showed us that in Chapel Hill. Now, granted, you can make your arguments for how good actually is UNC. Probably not very good. But he's still a really good quarterback. And Sonny Dykes is a coach that coached in the national championship in 2022. So it's not like we're that far removed from TCU having that special season that they did. And Sonny Dykes is still a very good football coach.
Mm-hmm. How about Tulane? They're unranked. They're number 3. They're 3-0, and they beat Northwestern and they beat Duke. We talked about the Duke game this weekend.
Yeah, I think Tulane's a really good football team, but the way the AP works is they have a reluctance to rank, G5 schools. I think, you get into that back half of the year, Tulane's going to put together a really good body of work, and they'll earn their ranking. And honestly, should they be ranked right now? You can make a very good argument, but the AP poll voters, they rank the Power 4 schools before they're ever going to rank a G5 school. And honestly, part of the reason I think they ranked South Florida was just because they wanted to see the ranked matchup of Miami and South Florida. I'm not sure. I'm not sure they did that, and just because they were like, wow,
maybe because they beat Florida.
Yeah.
So Cal is unranked. They beat Minnesota and they beat Oregon State so far. 3-0. Is I think Cal has a team that's worthy of at least a top 25 ranking.
It starts with their quarterback, Jaron Saga Pulete or something. It's something
easy for you to say. Yes.
Yeah, something in that neighborhood. But no, Cal will go as far as he takes them. That's where it starts and that's where it ends for them. Because he is, as advertised when he was coming out of high school, 5-star guy, bounced around a little bit between Oregon and Cal, and his recruiting process finally landed at Cal. And you could see why Oregon wanted him. Because, I mean, he is legit. And you can see why he believed in himself to go back to Cal, because he wanted to play.
All right. It's Jason Kiwa Sakapolite.
Okay.
Sakapolite. I quickly phonetically looked at that so that I could see what I could do with it. Yeah, I mean, he's a fine quarterback, and people may remember it's been a while, a long while actually, but they had you had mentioned they'll go as far as his arm will take them. A guy who was playing on Sundays for a long time now, a Cal quarterback who's now wearing the number 8 and playing for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Aaron Rodgers was in that same boat back in the day, and Cal did very well with him. So it's been a while, but we'll see.
A a
Go
guy
ahead.
that didn't do as well with, but is also in the NFL, Jared Goff.
Mm-hmm.
So they've got a pretty good recent history of quarterbacks
Mm-hmm.
there at Cal.
Yeah, there's definitely been that's been good for them, and so we'll see how it goes. Let me see if we have any more quick questions about college. Got a bunch of questions about the NFL, but let's see if we have any more colleges real quick. Can't get past the war chant thing there. Okay, Utah. Utah does Utah definitely deserves their um, Utah definitely deserves their ranking. I'm not going to argue at that point. As far as I'm concerned, Utah, is on a bounce back year. They've always had a good, solid team, and they're getting another one again. So
Yeah,
no argument there.
it's Kyle Whittingham does such a good job out there at Utah. They got a big one. They got a big one coming up this week. The Texas
Mhm.
Tech's coming to town.
Right.
The team that poured all those resources, all those NIL resources into this football roster.
Mm-hmm.
Texas Tech has played no one up until this point.
Mm-hmm.
A whole bunch of lower level schools, and now it's time for their first real test. And you're going to see. I think you're going to see truly the makeup of both of these teams because this is both their first true tests. And I know Utah's had a little bit more, a little bit stiffer competition along
Mm-hmm.
the way, but this is going to be the big test. And Utah's not an easy place to play.
No,
Texas
it's
Tech
not.
on the road is big there.
We were talking about bucket list stadiums. That's a beautiful stadium out there. It's nestled amongst the mountains. It really is a lovely, lovely place. It's not a massive. I think it seats about 55, 60, close to 60,000 place, but they're all they're definitely into tailgating, and they're definitely into supporting their team. And but at the same time, if you're a fan from another school, they're very nice to you. So it's a great place to watch a football game. And honestly, Kyle Whittingham doesn't get the 5-star guys, doesn't get the 4-star guys, but somehow, some way, he just seems to get the players that play well enough to win. And it's a system, and he seems to be able to do it and pull it off. And you know, I think he's possibly considered, frankly, in my mind, he's one of the most underrated coaches in college football.
Yeah, his Kyle Whittingham's thing, and you can see it across the country. There are a couple places that are kind of like built like this. Kurt Ferentz at
Mhm.
Iowa is a place that when
Sure.
they were going really well, he was getting a lot of credit for the way he ran things around there. Now,
Hmm.
not so much, but Kyle Whittingham runs a system, and he recruits players to play in his system.
Hmm.
You come in and you work and you fit the system, then Utah is going to be a good football program, and you are going to be successful at Utah.
Hmm.
It's as simple as that. When they have a team of players that are bought in and know how to play in Whittingham's system and play the brand of football that Kyle Whittingham likes to play, then Utah is going to be a tough out no matter who they are playing. They could be playing the number one team in the country, any field, anywhere. It's not going to be easy to beat Utah. And they showed that a few years ago in that Rose Bowl
Hmm.
against Ohio State.
Yeah, and they played a decent game against Penn State till the quarterback got hurt. Um, uh, yeah, it's a quality it's a quality program. The other thing too, about Whittingham, um, back when they were the Pac-12, the final 5 seasons of Pac-12, I went back and looked at this. His The graduation rate and the GPA rate for Utah in the Pac-12 was 8th in the country, and second in the Pac-12 to Stanford. So you're talking about some pretty smart kids he's got on the team too.
Yeah.
So he not only recruits, athletes, he recruits smart athletes.
Yeah, I will. I'm going to give you one more team because we're talking
Hmm.
about rankings and underrated or deserve their rankings and this,
Hmm.
that, and the other. Georgia Tech. Georgia
Oh,
Tech.
100%. They
Need to be ranked higher.
they balled out the other day against Clemson. That was a definite. If that wasn't a wake up call to the rest of the ACC about how good this Georgia Tech team is, I don't think they're going to get one. We talked about that on Friday.
Yeah,
that Georgia Tech was equal to the task of beating a Clemson.
I was wary on that one just because
Mm-hmm.
in Dabo Swinney's history, he's loved when he's the underdog.
Mm-hmm.
That felt like a prime spot for Clemson to come out and be like we're good. Like this is we returned all these starters. We had all this hype for a reason.
Right.
This statement win. No, Georgia Tech was resilient. And credit to Brent Key on that last drive. I was sitting there watching it and I was questioning the play calling
Mm-hmm.
because they ran it and then they took a timeout
Right.
after second down and ran it again on third down, leaving
Right.
them with a fire drill. What are you thinking? Okay, well, they practiced it all week. So that's exactly what he was thinking. Brent Key knew what he was doing. He knew to make sure Clemson didn't have a chance, to get them scrambled, not let Clemson get set for that field goal, not make his kicker think about the field goal.
Right.
And because I think a good contrast is Tennessee. Man, you watched that kicker and the way they handled that last sequence, that kicker had to be over there on the sideline for what felt like forever, waiting and anticipating and thinking about that kick that was coming up. Brent Key, no, there's no time to think. You got to run out there and we got to go execute. And I honestly really liked that game plan.
It's you brought it up, and it's funny because at the press conference afterwards, he specifically said, "I didn't want anybody to have to think."
Yeah.
He said, "I wanted because they talked about the rush, and he goes, we practice it. He goes, every college team practices it. He goes, and we practice. It's the last thing you practice before you finish, the practice every day." And he said, the greatest thing about it is that he says we've done it in his tenure. I don't know if it was at Georgia Tech, but anyway, in the time he's been around, he says we've done it 5 or 6 times, and we haven't missed a field goal yet.
Yeah.
So, I think you're right. I think a lot of times kickers are like golfers. If you get them time to think, they'll screw it up. But if you don't, like in this case, everybody. But the other thing is everybody executed. I mean, that's not easy either. I mean, the holder was in position, the snapper was in. Everybody did their job to perfection.
Yeah.
So and I agree. Georgia Tech is definitely an underappreciated team, and I think I think Clemson could end up losing 2 more before the season's over.
That Clemson definitely could. They're on the ropes. They have problems that span well outside of we'll fix it in a week. No, Cade Klubnik looks nothing like what everybody believed he was going to be. I was not bought in on Cade Klubnik coming into the year. It's turned out to age pretty well. One of the few ones that feels like it's aged well for me here recently. But Clemson has problems that I don't think you can fix. But going back to the coaches that run a program a certain way, Brent Key, since he was hired at Georgia Tech, they had a very rough first year. I believe this is only year 3 for Brent Key, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm fairly certain this is only year 3 for him. Year 1 was rough. He inherited a mess from Jeff Collins and whatever shards he left there at Georgia Tech. But a guy who went to Georgia Tech, a guy who loves Georgia Tech, and just a really good football coach and has built a really good culture there at Georgia Tech. They played well last year. The record, it wasn't as good as maybe people wanted it to be. It was still really good compared to what he had started with. But this year now it's like all right, this is the go time. They're already circling that game in Mercedes-Benz at the end of the year, the day after Thanksgiving against Georgia.
Yeah, as well they should. It's we were talking about Ken Denninger out in at Arizona State, and there's something to be said about guys who love the program, who love being at a place, and they're not thinking about their next job. They're thinking about, what can I do to make this team better?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that I love the coaches who aren't thinking about their next job.
Yeah.
And if you're Kirby Smart at Georgia, you don't have to think about your next job,
Yeah.
unless it's the pros. So, no, I think that was amazing weekend. Let's downshift. Anything from yesterday in the NFL that piqued your fancy?
The Colts piqued my fancy. They
No?
kind of got given their win on what is a very soft rule in that leverage call they had.
Yeah,
I think the guy over the center may have like gently placed his hand on top of the center, and
yeah,
they considered that leverage. He didn't actually leverage himself against the center,
right.
but that's a discussion for a different day. But they went out and they made the field goal. They won the game against what was a really good Colts defense. They scored 20, or a really good Broncos defense. They scored 29 points in total. That's good news for Colts fans because it didn't feel like a one-off scenario, especially with the Dolphins looking.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't look fantastic on Sunday, but they looked better.
Compatible.
Yeah, they looked
So
better, which
competitive.
maybe that speaks more to the state the Patriots are still in and how far
Mhm.
they have to go. But no, I would be very optimistic if I was a Colts fan getting a good result 2 weeks in a row like that from Daniel Jones in that offense.
How does the Pittsburgh Steelers not know the rule that that a ball that on a kickoff is not a live ball, and you just leave it there for the other team to pick up for a touchdown?
Yeah, no, that's fully. They talk about how well Mike Tomlin coaches his teams,
Mm-hmm.
and somebody missed somewhere. I don't know who it was that allows them to go out on kickoff not knowing that. Terrible play from Pittsburgh. It just something that you would not expect from a Mike Tomlin team, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and it's a situation where even if you don't know, right? At least you watch it to see if it rolls out of the back, of the end zone. I mean, you just don't leave it there.
Yeah, no, I really don't because like at a certain point, do you not see everybody still full sprinting, like the other team full sprinting towards the ball and think, hey, that's
Maybe there's a reason. Yeah,
yeah, that's
they're
odd. They're
not
still going
they're
full.
not doing wind sprints.
No one's blown a whistle. They're running full speed for some reason. I wonder why. Like
How,
nobody had that train of thought.
the thing here too, Danny Smith, who's the special teams coach of the Steelers, has for I don't know, maybe a decade been considered one of the premier special teams coaches in football. So I'm pretty sure that Danny had gone over these things with their players. So it was just one of those bonehead moves where you just either forget about it or just decide, okay, I'm not going after it, and it ends up, it ended up giving um, giving the Seahawks, a touchdown they didn't need or deserve, and it basically took Pittsburgh out of the game.
Yeah, no, I mean they were very much in the game, and then that was pretty much like the kind of the dagger for
Yeah,
Pittsburgh. Just the
going to
way
get.
the offense hadn't been fantastic on Sunday, and
Yep.
so in order to score how they needed to score, it wasn't going to happen on Sunday for Pittsburgh, and I guarantee you they'll be going over that rule this week.
I guarantee you that if it was up to Danny, he'd have that guy still out on Acrisure Stadium, catching kickoffs and knowing where to go with it. But
Judging different depths and distances, seeing like,
yeah,
hey, is this gonna reach or is this not?
right. The Ravens with another 40-point day outing. This time they won. So they've scored 81 points or 80 points in 2 games, and are 1-1. Um, if you're a Bengals fan, Joe Burrow looks like he's going to be out for
3 months.
Yep, possibly longer. Those toe situations are
Yeah.
tough to deal with, especially if you're a quarterback.
They deemed it necessary for surgery, and
Right,
the minimum timeline on surgery is 3 months.
right.
After that, it's
Yeah, it's a that's a. I mean, it must have been serious because you don't usually kind of wait on a turf toe to find out how it works, but
yeah,
they were concerned enough that that this was something to shut them down. From that standpoint, the Cowboys and the Giants. What a wild game that was yesterday.
yeah. I'm a little bit salty because I started the Cowboys defense in fantasy, and because against a team that didn't score a touchdown last week,
Right.
and they looked pretty good against Philadelphia, all things considered, I thought. And then man, they come out and they let Russell Wilson look like that. Pretty uninspiring performance from the Cowboys defense. Bet they could have used a pass rusher this weekend, like Micah Parsons. But yeah, it's wild football game against two teams that, quite frankly, I still don't think are very good. I think it was just like hey, we both don't have a defense. Let's see who can score more.
Yeah, it's like last guy who has the ball wins.
Yeah.
It's uh, Brandon Aubrey, the field goal kicker for for Dallas. It was a great line from Schottenheimer about him. They asked him what's his range. He goes, when he gets in the stadium. And the commentators from the broadcasters from the game the other day, yesterday, said that they watched him in practice hit 5 out of 5 from 74.
Jeez.
So that's a leg.
Yeah.
He played soccer in the Premier League, so he definitely has a foot. There's no question about that. So yeah, I mean that was a wild one.
I would also, I would question the game management from both those head coaches.
Oh my God!
Like the late scores in the fourth quarter. How does Malik Neighbors have the chance to catch that football like that? How are you letting them get in field goal position to tie the football game with very little time left? It's mind-boggling how those situations arise.
Yep, and it goes to your point as to why it's probably not going to be a good year for either the Giants or the Cowboys.
Yeah,
And the Lions just crushed the Bears. I mean, now that was a one of those things where you're sitting there going, "Wow, this is just how does this happen?" The Bears looked semi decent in the first game, and you couldn't hang it on Caleb Williams because he didn't have a lot to do with we were talking about defense. He didn't have a lot to do about the defense in that regard. So
I mean,
Buffalo looks good again against the Jets.
Other team scores 52. There's not anything your offense can do.
No.
It is another result though that makes you look back and go, "Yep, okay, this Packers defense definitely best in the league right now."
Yep, Packers team might be the best in the league right now.
Yeah.
Let's take a look at tonight. We have a doubleheader. Monday Night Football. The Buccaneers travel to Texas. That's a 7 p.m. game on ABC and ESPN.
Yeah.
So,
the Bucks. I think the Texans need this win. Quite frankly, they need something to kind of get momentum going back in their direction. C.J. Stroud didn't really play that well last year, and then that performance against the Rams defense that they were in a dogfight for about 3.5 quarters against Tennessee yesterday, and Tennessee was scoring on them. Cam Ward was scoring on them. So it's you need to see something out of CJ Stroud tonight against what is a solid unit for Tampa Bay, and just
Mhm.
honestly a really well put together and coached football team in Tampa Bay. I know a
Mhm.
lot of people point to their offense, but their defense is really good as well.
Mhm.
And so they need a positive result in order to get things going in the right direction headed into the season.
Well, and the other point to I mean, you're right. The Buccaneers defense is definitely something. Well, I mean, that's Todd Bowles' thing. He actually still calls the defense. The offense didn't look good against Atlanta, but you know, Baker Mayfield still throws 3 touchdown passes.
Yeah,
So it's one of those situations. So it's going to be. I agree. I think the Texans need to win this game,
yeah. They're
and we'll see how it goes. C.J. Stroud can't afford to. Uh, he can't afford to make mistakes because the Buccaneers will take advantage of mistakes.
Yeah, I talked about the Falcons and how they need to start winning close games. Last night
Mhm.
was a really good result for them, but honestly, I still think you would have liked to have been a 1-score game. As odd as that sounds, but the Buccaneers figure out how to win games that maybe they shouldn't.
Right.
They win the 1-score games. They're very well coached, and so the Texans are not facing an easy task by any
Mhm.
means. And they're staring down the barrel of an 0-2 start. And I don't know what the rest of their season looks like. But in that division, if you have a chance to get going, you need to get going
Right.
because now all of a sudden the Indianapolis Colts are a legitimate threat.
Hmm. Yep. The To your point on the Buccaneers led the NFL last year in 1-score wins.
Yeah.
So that shows you that. By the way, followed closely by the Washington Commanders. Um, it shows you how poised a team can be, uh, and in some cases, like last week, lucky
Yeah.
that that the guy misses a field goal.
Yeah.
Not that I want to go back for long, but I just want to touch on something that you brought up about the Falcons. I did watch the Falcons game yesterday, um, and was confused as to. I thought Michael Penix did well. I really do. I thought the whole team played well. But how do you have the ball in Minnesota territory as much as they did and not score touchdowns?
I don't know. Maybe and I didn't get to watch a lot of it. I had
Mm-hmm.
some other obligations that I had to tend to. But
Mm-hmm.
from what I did see, it was just it's Brian Flores' defense gives you some confusing looks and can mess with
Mm-hmm.
your eyes, and they can
Right.
get pressure. And that happens sometimes, but you've got to be able to convert when you have the ball in plus territory. And it was one of my gripes. You know, I think it was a real gripe at the end of that Tennessee Georgia game for both sides.
Mm-hmm.
They had a couple drives where they just chose to kind of shut it down, get conservative, and they didn't put them away. Tennessee had the same thing after they stripped Gunnar Stockton of the football. They had a chance
Mm-hmm.
to score a touchdown. They got conservative. They kicked the field goal, came back to bite them. And so you can't shut down your offense. And this goes back to what Brian Kelly was talking about, playing to win a football game.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if they weren't playing to win a football game because of how their defense looked and how confident they felt in their ability
Mm-hmm.
to stop Minnesota's offense.
Well, I mean, the other thing was that the Falcons were in the red zone inside the 20 4 times and one touchdown.
Yeah,
Um, that's something
that's
that's
that's an
something.
alarming result.
Yeah, that's. I think Penix will grow to be better at that. I'm not. I don't. I can't hang it on him because he didn't play a bad game.
No,
It was a very impressive uh, day for Kyle Pitts. I mean, Kyle Pitts, stepped up.
yeah,
So it wasn't like they didn't have players playing. It's just like when they got down that close to the end zone, they just couldn't figure out what to do. And that's to me is more on the offensive coaching as opposed to the actual players on the field.
yeah, and for some reason, it always seems whenever you hire a defensive head coach, your offense is always going to kind of lag behind. Doesn't
Mm-hmm.
matter. It feels like it doesn't matter how much talent you have. because and maybe philosophically they don't all believe this way, but they want their defense to win them football games, generally speaking. And so they kind of try to keep that offense in a box and maybe limit what they do on offense, as opposed to like a more offensive minded head coach and Sean McVay, Kevin O'Connell, those guys
Right.
that have a lot give their offense a lot more freedom.
And I'll say this before we get to the final game of the day this evening, and that is, once they figure it out, Atlanta's going to be a hell of a football team.
Yeah, their talent looks really good.
On both sides of the ball.
Yeah, both first-round picks had a sack last night. I think James Pearson had more than one. I think he at least got credited with another half sack. So their defense looked really good last night, and I still believe in Michael Penix in that offense. They just have too many weapons. Michael Penix has played far too well to be out on the Falcons at all. In fact, it's a rather, I would say the result from the offense inside the 20 last night would be disappointing, but the overall body of work of the Falcons over the first 2 weeks feel pretty good about the rest of the season going forward.
Well, that's what I was saying. If they figure it out, they have a legit chance at being not only just a contender for the NFC South, but they could go deep into the playoffs.
Yeah,
they've got that much talent on both sides of the ball.
I will say that if is so crucial, because there's been so many teams before where you're like, well, they have the talent. Why haven't they figured it out yet? And sometimes they just don't. They just don't figure it out. And I'm not inside those locker rooms, and you can't necessarily place it on one thing. But sometimes they just don't figure it out. So for the sake of Atlanta, you hope they figure it out the way things have gone for them lately.
Yep. Chargers Raiders, winner of this is in first place in the AFC West.
Yeah, Chiefs are 0-2. Bottom dwellers in the AFC.
Yeah.
The AFC West. Chiefs are. But
you have to go all the way back to his first year in the league for Patrick Mahomes to be 0-3.
Yeah. But getting this Chargers Raiders game, the Raiders have one glaring issue that they really didn't address all that well in the offseason. That's their offensive line.
Right.
The Chargers need to be able to expose that. We talked about their edge rushers going into that Chiefs game. I believe it was last week.
Right.
And they need to be able to expose what is a bad unit on the front for the Raiders. Geno Smith looked really good against the Patriots. I mean, his average depth of target was fantastic. He was efficient, and he was just kind of letting it rip against the Patriots. And if they let him sit back there and let it rip, it may be a long night, because I talked about this no-name secondary when talking about the Chargers. And, Patrick Mahomes, when he was given the time, he let it rip on them, and they got beat deep. And this Raiders team, Dante Thornton Jr. is a guy that I would watch out for. I think he came out of Oregon. He has all the speed in the world, and he will beat you deep if you give Geno that amount of time.
I've been impressed, by the way, by Austin Gentry, who the Raiders have used pretty well in his first couple games.
Yeah, he's looked all right, but he's suffering from the same as bad as their offensive line is in totality, where they're really bad is run blocking.
Right.
So, any positive results from Austin Gentry this year are really good, because he's fighting an uphill battle all year.
Yep. Well, we'll see. Mr. Harbaugh comes to town to take on Pete Carroll in a game tonight, the late night game tonight. Go ahead.
That coaching rivalry. People talk about team rivalries. That coaching rivalry is one of the best in sports. Back to Stanford and USC. Then you go out to the 49ers and Seahawks and all those battles they had in the NFC. Really, the playoffs are the most memorable ones.
They genuinely don't like each other.
Yeah, and now it gets re-upped in the AFC West. So we
Mm-hmm.
get to see it twice this year.
Yep. And I mean, they're two very quality coaches,
Yeah.
and I'm a little more um, close to Jim because I know him, and so I don't know Pete well at all, but Jim I do, and so I kind of pull for him from that standpoint. And when he took the Chargers job, I mean he knew exactly what he wanted, um, and they were exactly what he wanted. So we'll see, we will see, but. You know, it's a good night. We got doubleheader football on a Monday night. That's not bad. You know, starting early and ending late. So plenty to talk about. But any final thoughts before we get out of here on a
Uh,
Monday?
Final thoughts. I'll go back to what I'm most close to, and that's the Georgia Tennessee game and the
Okay.
results. See, on Twitter, I talked about how fans on Rocky Top like to make excuses, and I
Mm-hmm.
don't know if Kirby Smart's just broke them as a fan base or what happened, because so far I've seen people say, "Well, we gave you a scare." Um, I've seen the complaining about the refs, which that happens regardless of result.
Right.
That's gonna
Any
happen.
game you want to pick
Yeah,
that
it would have happened if the result had gone the other way too.
sure.
I think that's important to remember. I saw one where they said they were hey, well, we kept the stadium full in the fourth quarter. All these
That's really that's the lamest one I've heard.
yeah, so they had all kinds of stuff, and it was just like part of it. It almost makes you go, "Well, this is disappointing." What happened? What happened to the Vol Nation Twitter? This feels like a very sad set of responses post game. But
Mhm.
I will say, when what you watched on Saturday in Knoxville, Tennessee, was two playoff football teams. That's the biggest result that I came away with.
Yep. And two teams that are going to fight to the death to get to an SEC championship.
Yeah. Also, one that we didn't really touch on today was
Mm-hmm.
that Notre Dame A&M game.
Oh yeah.
What a treat of a slate to go from Tennessee, Georgia,
Mm-hmm.
into that game and the way that it ended. And I can't remember his name. I think it may have been Bryce Anderson, but
Mm-hmm.
that A&M defensive back and the scene that they had there in the
Right.
second half, you hope the best for him. Hope everything is going well. He gave him a thumbs up as he was getting carted off the field.
Right.
But overall, I was very impressed with A&M. I had questions about their offense. I had questions about their offense going on the road. I
Mm-hmm.
really thought Notre Dame's physicality was going to take over that game. It didn't. Obviously, there was a questionable non-holding call
Right.
at the game when they scored that touchdown. But props to A&M. They battled and they fought, and they came away with what is really a statement win for Mike Elko,
Mm-hmm.
going up to Notre Dame and coming back to Aggieland with that win.
Yeah, that was a big one. And since you stayed with the Georgia Tennessee one, I'll stay one with USF. Guys, you know, this week you play a team that isn't ranked in the top 25. So at least, you'll have an opportunity to go home and play a team play against a team that isn't ranked. So there's that. So you should go up and be up 3-1 before the end of the day on Saturday from that standpoint. So bright days are still here. Just don't everybody has a game and where they get blown out. And that was Miami last Saturday. So,
Yep.
and they had that almost 2 hour delay, which made it even more painful from that standpoint. But anyway, go
I,
ahead.
I'll give you a little. I'll give you a little hope as a USF fan. I remember back in 2017 that Georgia team that made it to the national title and was
Mm-hmm.
very close to winning that national title. They took a trip in late November over to Jordan-Hare Stadium, and they got beat, and they got beat real bad by Auburn
Mm-hmm.
in Jordan-Hare. And they bounced back and they won the SEC, they won the Rose
Right.
Bowl, and came real close to winning that national title. So just because you get blown out of a football game
Right.
does not mean that your season is anywhere close to over. That it can be a growing experience for a football team.
A lot of times coaches will take and say, we're not even looking at it.
Yeah.
We're moving on. Do not pay attention.
Yep.
So anyway, it was a wild weekend. We'll be back tomorrow to talk about what happened tonight, and get some early thoughts on next Saturday's games. So for Matt, I'm Jim. Thank you all very much for joining us, and we'll see you. Take care.